Have you ever heard of Peter Pan, the boy who couldn't grow up? The magical Disney tale of childhood essence. Peter Pan, the embodiment of unending youth. Now, we aren't here to discuss this tale, for what we are here to discuss does not fall too far from it. We are here to discuss the voice behind the character, a story without a happy ending. I was carried on a silver platter and dumped into the garbage. These are the words of Bobby Driscoll, the focus of our story. Whether it's James Dean or Kurt Cobain, we find ourselves obsessed with tales of untold potential, and I don't think anything characterises this more than the story of Bobby Driscoll, the boy Walt Disney once described as the living embodiment of his own youth. Just for him to end up buried in a pauper's unmarked grave, unidentified by anyone. I am Steinet, and this is The Boy Who Never Grew Up. Born Robert Cletus Driscoll on the 3rd of March 1937, Bobby was the son of an insulation salesman, Cletus Driscoll, and Isabel Driscoll, a former school teacher. They moved around from Cedar Rapids to Des Moines before finally settling in Los Angeles. When 1943 came and Bobby was just 5.5 years old, he was discovered by chance. Bill Cadle, the family barber's son, was working in show business at the time and encouraged his parents to get him involved in acting. This resulted in him getting an audition for the 1943 family drama Lost Angel. While taking a tour of the studio, Bobby noticed a mock-up ship and asked the director where the water was. The director was entertained and impressed by the boy's intelligence and curiosity. He then won the role of 40 other applicants, and with this, Bobby Driscoll debuted on the silver screen. This 2-minute debut helped with Bobby winning his next role as Al Sullivan, one of the 5 Sullivan brothers in the 1944 World War II movie called The Fighting Sullivans. With an amazing natural talent for acting and an ability to memorise lines, a trait not often found in child actors, the movie role started to roll in. Appearing in movies such as Sunday Dinner for a Soldier, Big Bonanza, and So Goes My Love. Shortly after The Fighting Sullivans was released in theatres, Bobby's life would receive its greatest blessing, the one that would turn into its biggest curse. In 1944, Bobby, now aged 7, would have 2 interviews at the Disney Studios. This resulted in the momentous happenings of Bobby Driscoll and fellow child star Lorna Patton becoming the first actors to sign a contract with Disney Studios. The first movie Bobby would star in for Disney along with Lorna would be the notorious movie Song of the South, where Bobby played the lead character. The encompassing fallout from this movie would catapult Bobby and Lorna into child stars, resulting in them becoming known as Walt Disney's sweetheart team. The couplet would go on to star in So Dear to My Heart in 1948 alongside Rider on the Storm singer Burl Ives, and Bobby would go on to star in the movie If You Knew Susie. RKO Studios would then loan Bobby from Disney for the movie The Window. However, millionaire aviator Howard Hughes, who owned RKO Studios at the time, considered the movie unworthy of release and described Bobby as not much of an actor. When the movie was released in 1949, it became a surprise hit, and the New York Times accoladed the success to Driscoll, with a quote saying, "The striking force and terrifying impact of this RKO melodrama is chiefly due to Bobby's brilliant acting, for the whole effect would have been lost were there any suspicion of doubt about the credibility of this pivotal character. The Window is Bobby Driscoll's picture. Make no mistake about it." The movies So Dear to My Heart and The Window would earn Bobby the greatest honour a child actor could hope for. He was awarded a Special Juvenile Academy Award as the Outstanding Juvenile Actor of 1949.
I've been so thrilled in my life. It's wonderful. But I want to thank everybody that had to do with me getting this award. And I want to thank God for giving me such a wonderful mother and father. Thank you.
Walt Disney would then begin the production of Treasure Island, the studio's first all-live-action picture, and of course, Driscoll would be playing Jim Hawkins, the protagonist. The movie, however, was to be filmed in England, and during its production, it was discovered Bobby did not have a valid British work permit. This resulted in Disney being fined and ordered to leave the country. While allowed to remain for 6 weeks to prepare an appeal, the director, Byron Haskin, quickly shot all of Driscoll's close-ups, and they used a British stand-in to film the missing location scenes after he returned back to California. Treasure Island was a massive hit across the globe. Driscoll was truly a star. Many projects began to be visualised with Bobby as the star, but none became realised. Walt Disney had been interested in making his own portrayal of the adventures of Tom Sawyer, and of course he wanted to cast Driscoll as Tom Sawyer. He was the perfect age and an ideal candidate for the role, but ownership disputes would ultimately end the dream of this production. It was soon publicly announced that Bobby was to portray a young Robin Hood and star alongside Robert Newton, who had portrayed Long John Silver in the Treasure Island movie alongside him. However, in the end, the movie was released, but with a different cast and a different story, and without Bobby Driscoll or Robert Newton. This was down to the earlier legal issues with Driscoll's work permit, making it impossible for him to make another movie based in the United Kingdom. When Bobby Driscoll was just 16, he had his last major success, voicing and being the face model for the titular character Peter Pan. This was to be Bobby's final role for Disney, the boy who Disney had seen so much of himself in. The perfect, wholesome, all-American kid had his Disney contract cancelled. Driscoll was, without doubt, Disney's favourite child star, and he would state he was the living embodiment of his own youth. However, during a meeting after the completion of Peter Pan, Disney had stated he now saw Driscoll being suited for the role of a young bully, and he was not the likeable protagonist anymore. Following the release of Peter Pan, Bobby would suffer from a terrible onset of acne. This was used to explain why Driscoll would have to use heavy makeup for his TV show appearances, and was officially provided as the final reason for the end of his contract at Disney. It turned out growing up was the reason Peter Pan had to leave Neverland. Bobby started to face growing contempt from different studios. After all, he was Walt Disney's child star, and he couldn't be seen as anything else. However, he did find himself finding steady work within television and radio. His parents withdrew Bobby from the Hollywood Professional School, which served child actors, and enrolled him in a public school. This resulted in a drastic drop in his grades and a lot of bullying about his career as a child star. He said of this time, "The other kids didn't accept me. They treated me as one apart. I tried desperately to be one of the gang. When they rejected me, I fought back, became belligerent and cocky, and I was afraid all of the time." Around this time, Bobby started to take drugs. A genuinely unhappy time for Bobby. He's quoted saying, "Other kids proved themselves once, but I had to prove myself twice with everyone." He started hanging around on the beaches of LA, and while here he befriended other young Hollywood actors, namely Robert Blake of Beretta, Dean Stockwell of Quantum Leap, and Russ Tamblyn of West Side Story. They hung around playing pool, but sadly this led to Bobby playing a more dangerous game. Bobby started getting involved with the drug heroin. "I had everything. I was earning $50,000 a year, working steadily with good parts. Then I started putting all my spare time in my arm. I'm not sure why I started using narcotics. I was 17 when I first experimented with the stuff. In no time I was using whatever was available, mostly heroin, because I had the money to pay for it." In 1956, he was arrested for possession of marijuana, but the charges were dismissed. The Los Angeles Times wrote, "This could cost this fine lad and good actor his career." He started going by the name Robert Driscoll to distance himself from his youthful roles as Bobby. His childhood was in his past. He was no longer Bobby Driscoll, Peter Pan, Jim Hawkins, Tom Sawyer, Robin Hood, Disney's youth, the All-American Dream. He was Robert, a man detached from his past, a tale of golden youth derailed by the hardships of reality. His last known appearances on TV were small roles on the shows The Best of the Post and The Brothers Brannigan, both released in 1960. In 1961, he was sentenced as a drug addict and imprisoned in a narcotic rehabilitation centre. When he left in early 1962, he couldn't find himself acting work. "I have found memories are not very useful. I was carried on a silver platter and then dumped into the garbage." "1965 came and his parole had expired. Bobby moved to New York with dreams of becoming a Broadway star, reviving his career, but the efforts ended unsuccessful. Out of every man in Hollywood, Robert Driscoll befriended artist Andy Warhol, who of course loved having Bobby Driscoll, the former child star, as part of his scene. Robert quickly became part of the Greenwich Village art community, which was known as The Factory. The Factory was Andy Warhol's studio on the 5th floor of 2311 East 47th Street in Midtown Manhattan, and the rent only cost $100 a year. It mainly served as a hangout for artists. Here Driscoll would focus on his final outlet, his artistic talents. He'd previously been encouraged to do so by Wallace Berman, an experimental video and collage artist. Some of the work that Robert created was stated as being outstanding, though a small amount of his work still exists. His surviving collages and cardboard mailers were temporarily exhibited in the Santa Monica Museum of Art. The last piece of art he was featured in can also be found and still watched today on YouTube. It's a short film directed by experimental filmmaker Piero Helixer called Dirt. This is the last evidence there is of his existence. After his stay at the Factory, the now penniless Driscoll disappeared into the Manhattan underground. Nobody knows of his last days. In 1969, Driscoll's mother, the former school teacher, had went to Disney Studios to ask for help to find Bobby. Insulation salesman Robert Cletus, Bobby's dad, was nearing death, and she wanted to reunite them before he passed away. What she found instead was a fingerprint match. Well, you see, on the 30th of March 1968, 2 children playing in an abandoned Manhattan apartment found the body of Bobby Driscoll laid upon a cot, with 2 empty beer bottles and religious pamphlets scattered around his body. The post-mortem had found he died from heart failure due to the hardening of his arteries. The children didn't know who he was, and photos shown around the neighbourhood could not identify him either. The Academy Award-winning child star, the first actor under contract by Disney Studios, the voice of Peter Pan, was buried in a pauper's grave without a name. His father died 2 weeks later. Driscoll's mother had said, "Our minster had a theory," he said. "Bobby just didn't want to be a good little boy anymore. He'd been too good. He wanted to be the reverse. Maybe that was it." You can still find Bobby's name on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which was cemented to the pavement of Vine Street in 1960, just like his work has cemented him to the history of the silver screen. Though the sad tale of Bobby's life came to an end in unfortunate happenings, I think it's important we remember him for his achievements and not his shortcomings. It becomes easy to remember somebody for how they lost their way. We should remember him for his acting, that special Disney magic he so effortlessly brought with him everywhere he went. I've been Steinet, and thank you for listening to The Boy Who Never Grew Up.